Hello, welcome to another episode of Focus on Tomorrow. I am your host, Alma. Focus on Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization located in Chicago, Illinois. Find us on the web at www.focus-on-tomorrow.org or email us at info@focus-ontomorrow.org. Today we have Sarah Labadie from Women Employed. Hello, Sarah.
Hi.
So, can you tell us what is the mission of Women Employed?
Sure. Women Employed mobilizes people and organizations to expand educational and employment opportunities for America's working women. And we tend to do that in two ways, making workplaces more fair and increasing access to and success in higher education and training programs.
So your position is Senior Policy Associate. Can you please tell me a little bit more about your position?
Absolutely. So as a Senior Policy Associate, I'm working mostly with the education and training team on increasing access to and success in education and training programs by changing systems across Illinois. So that means instead of working directly one-on-one with people, I'm working to craft policies that help many, many women across the state of Illinois.
Okay, this is a call-in show, so if you have any comments or questions, call us at 312-738-1060. Why is it important for organizations like Women Employed to exist?
So Women Employed was founded in 1973, which is 42 years ago. And at that period of our history in America, workplace discrimination against women was blatant. So pregnant women were routinely sent home because they were showing at work, and so they weren't allowed to work anymore. Sexual harassment didn't even have a name at the time. It was just something that you underwent and that happened to you. Employers would flat out say things like, "We don't hire women for these kinds of jobs." Want ads in the paper were gendered, so they would say things like female secretary wanted versus secretary wanted. And so Women Employed put pressure on companies and on the government to enforce affirmative action requirements and to change policies that would help more women get good jobs. Today, millions of women are in jobs that were once closed to them or once not allowed for them. And I think also today's women, or women in maybe my generation and future generations, don't even think of many jobs as being potentially even closed to them, which is what Women Employed has done in the past. There are laws against pregnancy discrimination, there are laws against workplace harassment, and we've made some small gains on work and family issues as well, like the Family and Medical Leave Act. Family Medical and Leave Act. We've made some real progress, but there's still a lot of work to be done. And so I think that's why Women Employed still exists, unfortunately. We need to do more on pay discrimination. We need to do more on guaranteeing paid leave for women. Millions of women are working in low-paid, low-opportunity jobs in retail, in food service, in caregiving, and other occupations. In fact, women make up 2/3 of all low-wage workers in this country, and 42 million women are living in or on the brink of poverty. So we still have tons of work to do on improving workplaces and improving opportunities for women in America.
Right. So before we get started, further into the interview, can you define the wage gap of men and women?
Sure. So the wage gap is essentially the difference between what a woman would make over the course of a year or really on a per dollar basis to what a man makes. So right now in this country, a woman makes about 78 cents for every dollar that a man makes. And that's considered the wage gap, the difference. And so, for example, one of the ways that we articulate that is something called Equal Pay Day, which is how far into the next year. So if a man makes an annual salary over the course of January 1st to December 31st, it takes a woman until April, like mid-April of the following year to make that same amount. And that's how the wage gap is sort of quantified.
Wow. So how does Women Employed work to change the mindset of biased employment employers?
So I think employers don't have to decide between doing well economically and doing well financially and doing good for their for their employees and doing the right thing for their employees, they can offer benefits and still make money. And there are a number of employers in the United States that do that. They offer, stable schedules. They offer good wages. They give paid sick days to their workers, and they end up with motivated workers, capable workers, a productive workforce, better service in their industries, increased sales, reduced turnover. And so we try and help people understand that those things, that there are costs to not giving your employees benefits, and encourage them to adopt practices that are better. And that's true. So that's changing the mindset of the idea that good jobs cannot also be productive businesses or companies.
So does women employ focus just in general in women, or is there more of a encouragement for women of color to join?
So Women Employed focuses on sort of helping all women, but low-wage women in particular are overwhelmingly and disproportionately women of color. So, for example, Latina's share of the top 10 low-wage industries, top 10 low-wage occupations, is 2.7 times larger than what their actual share of the workforce is, right? So they're more represented in the top 10 lowest wage industries. African American women are sort of in that same vein, are 2.6 times more likely to be in these low-wage industries. And while women overall, we've mentioned the wage gap, earn 78 cents to the every man's dollar, black women earn 64 cents for every dollar a man makes, and Latina women earn 56 cents for every dollar a man makes. So while the focus is to bring all women up, it's certainly important for women of color as well.
Right. So in 2009, Women Employed worked with different organizations across the country to pass the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act. So employees can fight back if they experience pay discrimination. How would you say this policy has affected women in the workplace?
So the Lilly Ledbetter Fair Pay Act really, which was passed in 2009, was actually the first bill that President Barack Obama signed into law. So that's his legacy, is signing this bill into law. Basically means that employers can't discriminate on, not just on gender, but on race, religion, and a number of other issues. And what happened is that there was a court case. Lilly Ledbetter was part of the court case that said that she had 180 days from the date of her very first pay discrimination time. So 180 days to file a claim. So if she found out 189 days later that she was being discriminated against, her claim, she wasn't able to file a claim, and that was what the court case said. So this law actually overturned that and said you have 180 days from any time you experience that discrimination. So a subsequent pay period, for example, a subsequent paycheck that is still a discriminatory paycheck, you are able to do. You're able to file a claim at that point. So that was extremely helpful for women because many, many people don't know that they've experienced pay discrimination until a while afterwards, right? Until they find out that the salaries of their male coworkers or other coworkers are significantly higher, even though they have the same level of experience. And so it's been very helpful. There have been court cases that have now been challenged and things like that. And it really restored the ability of workers to vindicate their pay discrimination, and it was just a common sense law that was easily passed, or not easily passed, but benefited workers who had suffered from discrimination. Unfortunately, even though we've passed that law and there have been equal pay laws on the books for quite a long time, there's still a lot of different challenges for pay discrimination. And one of the things that we could pass in the future is at the federal level is something called the Paycheck Fairness Act, because right now workers can be retaliated against for disclosing their pay, right? So if you have a couple of workers who have told other employees about their pay, then you may have them be sort of told that that's not allowed or discriminated against at work, and then then you have a challenge of like even finding out that pay discrimination is happening. So passing the Paycheck Fairness Act prohibits employers from then retaliating against workers who've disclosed how much money they make.
Right. So that's sort of how would you know if you're being discriminated by. Okay.
Exactly.
The current minimum wage in Illinois is 8.25 an hour, and at the federal level is 7.25. Do you think that wage is enough for like people to live on a
No. No, the answer to that question is no. And there's a reason it's called the minimum wage and not a livable wage, right? It is the absolute minimum that people could even begin to really live their lives on. If you sort of add that out or multiply that out at 40 hours a week for 52 weeks a year, it's just over $17,000 a year, which in Chicago is definitely not enough. In Chicago, it's typically like what we would suggest, or what calculators would say, you would need 3 times that as a one-parent, one-child household just to live. I mean, that's housing costs, that's healthcare costs, transportation costs. You can't live on $17,000 a year. And I would also say, you know, contrary to popular misconception, people really believe that the minimum wage is in place to help, just as for teenagers who are working through high school, or for college students who are working between their semesters. But in reality, 80% of minimum wage workers are adults. They're people who have families. They're people who are trying to support themselves and others on their own without any help from their families. So it's not students who are, you know, trying to make a little extra cash. It's people who are really working to support their families. And in Illinois, there are about 400,000 minimum wage workers. So that's a significant number of people in Illinois who are struggling in jobs that don't produce a livable wage.
And are women they're more likely to make less than men?
Yeah, so 59% of minimum wage workers are women. So there's a significant share of women in the minimum wage workforce.
How does increasing the minimum wage help women and families in Illinois?
So, as I mentioned, 59% of minimum wage workers are women. And also women, we think of women as primary caregivers in their family, but they're also more often becoming breadwinners in their family too. 60% of women are primary or co-breadwinners for their household, meaning that they help make up the share of money that is going into their household. And so, you know, if women aren't making that money, you know, if they're making minimum wage, then they're not supporting their household adequately. And it would help reverse the trend of growing wage inequality between, you know, sort of women, families that are, you know, earning the minimum wage and families who are earning, you know, extreme wages. It would allow workers to begin to stabilize their lives and stabilize their families. And it would also allow workers to inject more money back into the economy. People who are making more money spend that money, right? When you're working on basic amounts of money, small amounts of money like $17,000, you're buying food, you're buying groceries. Unfortunately, you're not saving that money really, because it's still such a small amount of money. And so increasing the minimum wage, and what we would recommend, increasing it to about $11 an hour, wouldn't be enough for it to be livable, but it would make a drastic change in the lives of women and their families.
So how is the minimum wage determined?
So it's just been set for a long time at what it is, right? So the minimum wage, if it had been indexed to inflation, so if it had gone up at the same rate that inflation had gone up, it would be about $11 an hour now. But unfortunately, we haven't raised the minimum wage in quite a while at the federal level. It's been stuck at $7.25 for a long time. Here, it's been at $8.25. But actually, Chicago just passed a minimum wage increase that would bring it up to $13 an hour over time. And at the state level, we also have a bill that would hopefully bring it up to $11 an hour over time.
Okay. Do you support a referendum that allows all workers in Chicago to earn paid sick time off? Why is this important to students?
Well, it's important. I guess it's important to students, but it's mostly important to workers and their families. And it's important because it's good for workers and their families. So 42% of private sector workers in Chicago don't have access to a single paid sick day. And about 80% of low-income workers lack a single paid sick day. And those are people who can least afford to lose wages. So those are people who that additional, $56, $60 over the course of the day is the difference between paying their electric bill and not paying their electric bill. And what happens is if you don't have access to paid sick days is if you're sick or if a relative is sick, your kid is sick and stuck at home, you can't take that day off. So your choices are to leave your child at home. Your choices are to come into work sick. I mean, if you can't afford that one day off. So the reason it's important to workers and families is they can take that day off. They can take that day off to care for their sick child. We actually have the city's paid sick days ordinance also allows you to take the time off for an incident of domestic or sexual violence, and also if a school or building is closed because of a public health emergency. And when in the most recent election, 82% of Chicago voters supported paid sick days. So the referendum in the city is actually well supported by residents of the city, and actually well supported by the majority of the city's aldermen too. So passing the earned sick time ordinance is something we'd really like to do. It's about time to do that and not force workers to choose between their own health, the health of their kids,
Right.
or their paycheck.
Can you tell us a little bit about the Illinois Tuition Assistance Program and how it helps low-income students?
Sure. So Illinois' tuition assistance program is called the Monetary Award Program, or MAP grant. And what the MAP grant does is it helps students pay for college. That's simply it helps them access, afford, and then succeed in college. It is currently drastically underfunded to the point where fewer than half of all students who are eligible for it get it, and it's firmly based on income. So it just matters how much your parents or you yourself make. And right now, about fewer than half of all students, they're eligible for it. They're just not getting the money because the state doesn't have enough money to fund all students. And so what that means is that students who don't get the funding are either have to make up the money, which is most often being done now with grants and loans, or with loans rather. A lot of these students who are being denied are choosing really low cost colleges. So they're choosing community colleges, which already are fairly affordable, but the MAP grant, without the MAP grant, are not affordable. Or you're choosing just not to go. So instead of getting to go to school, you're stuck in perhaps one of these minimum wage jobs that you're trying to get out of, or you're going part-time when you could be going full-time and stretching how long it'll take you to graduate. And those are the options when the state is so underfunded with the Monetary Award Program. And I will say, so in past years, the MAP grant, the money has run out, late in the year, closer to the actual enrollment date for students enrolling in college. This year, the money ran out February 22nd. So if you filed your FAFSA, which is the free application for student aid, if you filed your FAFSA after February 22nd, you are likely not getting a MAP grant this year. So.
Wow. So you recently created the Bridge program to help low-skilled adults advance in college-level courses. What kind of success are you seeing in this program?
Sure. So I should have explained what a bridge program is, because I think a bridge program is a little bit of a complicated idea. So there are thousands of women in adult education programs. So they're often men and women without a high school diploma, or they may not have a high school diploma, or they have limited English skills. And they want to go to school and get their high school equivalency and move on to college-level courses and get a degree or credential in a college-level course. And what bridge programs do is they're innovative programs that help people get from their adult education program into these college level courses. And what that means, and what they do is they kind of couple different pieces together. So they couple career program information with educational touch points. And then there's support for transition into the next step of your program and things like that. And they're very successful. So they are much more successful than traditional adult education programs. And they're really helping students move in. And with the City Colleges of Chicago here, right here in good old Chicago, Women Employed has been working on actually writing lesson plans, so detailed lesson plans for teachers rather, and for the schools that would help that would create these bridge programs and implement these bridge programs, and roll them out. And they've had great success here at the City Colleges.
With the rise in college tuition, some people are opting out of going to college because they just simply can't afford it. Do you think this will create a big divide amongst the classes?
So I think we've definitely seen the shift of college costs moving away from public education, right, and the public sphere to families and individuals. And so if you are a family or an individual who can afford to pay your way into and through college, then for sure you are still able to pay for and go to college. But if you're in that group of people who requires a MAP grant to get you there, right? And that's, I mean, a majority of students who drop out of school cite financial reasons as why they dropped out of school. So if you require a MAP grant to get to school or other kinds of education funding, then you're less likely to be able to go to school. And I think that has created there's a cost shift in that tuition is more often being borne by students and their families, instead of by the public system and by the state in particular. The state has really de-invested in higher education, which is a proven strategy to help women and families succeed. It's, everything correlates positively with education. Your income amounts, your civic participation, your employment rate. Education is a proven strategy to improve and help women succeed and their families succeed. And so when we're not helping lower income families and lower income people succeed, we're creating a divide between the people.
How does Women Employed work to eliminate barriers for students who are struggling to succeed in college?
We do a number of things. We help at the systemic level. We work with a group of students to speak to their legislators about how important it is to invest in higher education and invest in programs like the MAP grant. We, again, are working on bridge programming, which is helping students transition from adult education into college level courses. And we're working just at the sort of state and national level on helping improve programs, policies, and procedures that will help more students access higher ed.
Do you ever go into colleges and offer this program to join Women Employed?
So we have a small organizing project called Student Advocates for Success, which is on a small number of college campuses right now in and around the Chicago area, where we help students understand the issues facing the monetary award program and education funding in general, and advocate on their own behalf. So we mobilize them to go speak to their legislators, to write letters to their legislators, to understand education campaigns and things of that nature.
Well, we have 1 minute left at the show. Is there anything else you want to say? How women could get involved? How you get involved with Women Employed?
Sure. So you can get involved with Women Employed in a number of different ways. The fastest and easiest way is to go to our website at womenemployed.org. And you can join up with our Action Network, which makes it really easy for you to take action on issues that are important to working women. You can donate right there online, and you can join to sign up for our e-newsletter, which will send you timely and important information once a month about the issues that are facing women in Chicago and the nation.
Okay. Once again, this is Focus on Tomorrow. Focus on Tomorrow is a nonprofit organization located located in Chicago, Illinois. Find us on the web at www.focus-on-tomorrow.org, or you can email us at info@focus-on-tomorrow.org. I am your host, Alma, and come back next week for another episode.